Hello aspirants and welcome again to Legacy IAS Academy. A big news is coming in wherein the demands that were earlier made for a caste census is now being paid heed to by the government. So we'll see what this demand was all about and what are its repercussions or consequences. So what is this big news that we are talking about? So basically the government of India, they have decided to hold a caste census along with the upcoming census. So the last census has taken place in 2011. The next was supposed to happen in 2021. However, we know that we face a huge COVID crisis in the year 2020, as a result of which the 2021 caste census, which should have happened, was deferred. Until now, it has not started. Now it is about to start. It will start. When it does, the government has decided that this census is not going to be alone, but rather it will also have the caste census being done along with the census. That means what? In census, the population is counted. In caste-based census, the caste of that population will also be taken into consideration. So why the demand for this caste census is this? See, this demand is not any new demand. It has been there since time immemorial, right? So the data that is collected in census since 1951, it simply includes what? The individuals, of course, the number of people below, and it also includes those belonging to the SCs and STs, as well as various religious denominations. So this is what was included in 1951. The members of caste groups other than SCs and STs have not been counted. So in 1951, what happened? You have the SCs, ST population, but you do not have the other caste. You don't have the OBCs, various OBCs, etc. You don't have. At the same time, within SC, STs also, there are not different sub-categorization which is present. So basically, as good as no data is present with the country, within the country. Further, what happened is the most recent caste census data that we have is that of during the British era. So the most recent caste data available is from the census of 1931. This is during the British era. In fact, the 1941 caste census, the census that was carried out during World War, it also collected the data of caste, but they were never released. So three data we have talked about. 1951, which bifurcates into SCs, STs and other categories are there, means there's no other categorization, and religious not minorities, but different religious sections of the society. So it does not have different caste categories, it does not have OBC, etc. So caste basically data is not there. One happened in 1941, but this is not the recent one that we have available because it happened during the Second World War by the Britishers and the data was never released, so we don't have the data. The only data that we have, the latest one, is that of 1931. It is close to 100 years old, and that too done during the British rule. So this was the situation, as a result of which people demanded caste-based census. Right now, when the demand for caste-based census came in, the government so far has not yielded to it. Rather, over a decade back, we did come up with the socio-economic caste census, right? Socio-economic caste census. Now, why is that the case? Why we came up with socio-economic caste census, and what is socio-economic caste census? How is it different from the caste census that we will be doing now? So let us have a look at that. So census, when you talk about the number of people, it is basically an observational data. Now, for this observational data, how does this process work? The government employs certain government officials only. Generally, they are the teachers, the primary, the middle school, generally the primary school teachers. They are appointed, they are given the roles of doing, not appointed, they are already into service. They are given the responsibility of carrying out the task. Now, they are known as enumerators. So lakhs of enumerators will be deployed to calculate the total number of population. And this data that they calculate is observational in nature, means what? You can see it and believe it. If I see one person sitting in the class, I know there is one person in the class in addition to me. So I know it. I do not have to need any other verification, any other evidence for that. Now the same is not true when you are going to confirm the caste of the person. So if I ask the caste of the person, for example, what happens if the person says I am from XYZ caste, can I ascertain it? Can I ascertain it? No, we are just, so this is the reasoning so far that was given by the previous governments that has come and gone, which said that enumerators, they are trained to ask the questions and record observational data. They will record the answers as returned by the respondent. The enumerator is not an investigator or a verifier. They can neither investigate nor can they verify the document or the caste document which is given to them. So it is not possible to do caste census, is what is coming out of this, right? However, there was group of ministers that was formed in order to discuss about the requirement of caste census, and it recommended the union cabinet to the union cabinet subsequently, which decided to carry out the socio-economic caste census. So caste census has not been done, but the socio-economic caste census has been done, right? However, there are certain issues with this as well. So what is the issue? Data which was published by Ministry of Rural Development and Urban Development 2016. What they did is they published it, but they excluded the caste data which was there, right? I hope that's clear. Moving ahead, the raw caste data was handed over to the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Now this ministry, it formed an expert group under the then Niti Aayog Vice Chairperson Mr. Arvind Panagriya, right? For what? For classification. You had the raw data. Now you are required to classify and categorize this raw data. However, that has not yet happened. The data is not yet made public. That means what? That means we are back to square one as far as the caste census is concerned. Moving ahead, what are the recent developments? Now, ahead of the very recent Lok Sabha elections that happened in 2024, there was demand of caste census from almost all political parties that were there. Almost all the opposition and the political parties that were there, they demanded caste census. Now, we will understand why this caste census is being demanded. We'll understand the reasoning of that as well. In fact, several state government, they have also sought to implement quota within the quota. What is quota within the quota? For example, in OBC, there will be various castes. So let's say in OBC, let's say if there are 50 castes. So if in OBC total 50 seats, 500 seats are reserved. So that means approximately 10 seats for each sub-category of OBC should be reserved. Now, not exactly the same. Some might require more reservation depending upon the population. Some might require less. But the idea is this 500 seats will not be completely open to all the OBC members, but rather under OBC also there will be sub-categorization and bifurcation of these seats into different number to different subcasts under OBC will be provided, is what is being thought of by various state governments as well. I hope that's clear. Now, in 2021, the constitutional body, that is the National Commission for Backward Classes, it also urged the government to collect the data on population of OBCs as part of census data. So the National Commission on Backward Class, of course, it takes care of the, let's say, the benefits or the rights of the OBC people. So they have also asked to include the OBC population data in its census. So the government is going and doing one better. They are not just going to include OBC, but also SC/STs. They are going to include this data of all the castes that are there. Right? I hope that's clear. So when that is done, now the government has decided to include. So when that is done, what will then happen? So what will then happen is, when the data is collected, it will impact the government policies and boundaries of political constituencies. Absolutely. We are including the impact of both the census and the caste census. So when census is done, the population changes. So the constituencies may change, the boundaries of the constituency may change. To give a simple example, let's say this particular box need to be divided into 4 constituency, was divided like this, right? Why it was divided like this? Because we are trying to have equality of the number of population. Let's say 100 people were here, 100 people here, 100 here and 100 here. So we have divided into 4. Now after so many years, when you are doing the population counting, what will happen is, if you look at this square, it might now be divided something like this, this and this, Why? Because now there are 300 people in this small area, 300 people in this small area, 300 in this large area, and only 300 in only this small area. So the constituency division may change. That is one thing. Then there are constituencies which are reserved for SC/STs. That will change, because you will have the new data which will be required, which will be used to also delimit the constituencies. So here the full delimitation of Lok Sabha and Assembly constituencies, it was kept on hold since 1971, right, which was frozen. It will unfreeze, because it said it is frozen until the first census taken after the year 2026. So it is in the future going to be unfrozen, and the new population data will be taken into account for delimitation of the constituencies. Right. Now one more thing here over here is, because of this delimitation, there is a possibility that the government can look to increase the number of seats of Lok Sabha itself. Why? Because huge number of population, you need more let's say member of parliament to govern, right? So the number of constituencies can increase, and since that is dependent on population, then in that case what will happen? Higher the population, more can be the constituent parliamentary seats or legislative seats. Legislative seats, chalo fine, that's fine, not a problem, because it is state wise, but the parliamentary seats will be an issue, because then what will happen? The states which had grown at a faster rate with respect to population will start getting more and more seats, and the states that have actually done well with respect to controlling the population will be hampered by being given less number of seats. And generally, if you look at it, these are the South Indian states that have actually managed to control the population to a greater extent as compared to the North Indian states. So generally speaking, the North Indian states population has grown at a faster pace. The South Indian states have managed to control the population. So what can happen? North Indian states may have more seats, South Indian states have less seats. So that is why the discontent is also coming up over here, because now the South Indian states are saying and will say, because that is quite logical, that we managed to control the population and we achieved this, which was asked by the central government, which has been asked since so many 5-year plans previously also. We managed to achieve it, and now you are punishing us for that. So that again is going to be an issue. At the same time, the reservation for women in legislature, etc., that will also be impacted, of course. Now, is there any other possibility that we can talk about over here? Yes, absolutely right. There will be a possibility of, when the caste census come, the population figures come, and you see that the population of SC, STs, OBCs are quite high as compared to what was assumed or calculated so far. So what can happen is, demand for increased reservation can also come. That's point number one, increased reservation in government jobs. The other thing that can happen is the demand for reservation in private sector may come up, because the jobs in the government sector is quite limited, of course, right? And more privatization is happening. So the demands for jobs in the private sector can also be made if and when the data, probably it is expected that it will showcase that the population of SC, STs, OBCs is quite high. So it will lead to a demand for increased reservation as well, or reservation in private sector as well can be sought for. At the same time, there might be sub-categorization within the caste itself, in order to ensure that not just few groups in a particular caste gets the benefit, but others also do. Thank you.